Good afternoon. It's Thursday, the 14th of July, 2016, just after 1 o'clock. Welcome to UK Column News. I'm your host, Brian Gerrish. With me in the studio, Mike Robinson. Well, two things. One is that the weather here is particularly nice. It's hot and sunny. We've got some blue sky. We're told it's hot in Brighton, so we'll stick with that. And we'd just like to say thank you very much to those of you who send us things to eat. Our food taster is having trouble coping with that. So we're going to say very nicely, thank you for what's been sent. But at the moment, we are well fed.
I don't need any more.
Mike said he doesn't need any more. Well, if we can joke a bit about things around the UK column, we certainly can't joke about matters political in UK because we are now watching extraordinary things unfold. First of all, we will just say bye-bye to David Cameron. And I tweeted out this picture of all the glad handing and hoorays and yarboos. I looked at the faces of these politicians and I cringed really when we think of the track record of David Cameron. So unleashing the wars in Syria and Libya, Afghanistan and Iraq still going. Absolutely no feeling for human beings, and here all his chums congratulating him on what a good job he does as he moves to an estate in Scotland where he'll be even further away from reality. Now, he did say on a live interview with the BBC that he wanted to really thank the love of his life, Samantha Cameron, because she just about kept him sane. Well, she just about didn't quite keep him sane, really. So now we've got a cartoon factory coming in, Mike, I think it is.
A new shower, and here they are. In no particular order, we've got Philip Hammond, obviously, who's moved from Foreign Secretary to Chancellor of the Exchequer. We've got Boris Johnson. We'll say a little bit more about him in a moment, who's made Foreign Secretary. We've got Amber Rudd, Home Secretary. We're going to say a bit about her. Michael Fallon stays where he's supposed to be, which is Defence. David Davis becomes Secretary of State for exiting the European Union. Well, we'll discuss that in a little bit as well. Liz Truss, Justice Secretary. Justine Greening, Education Secretary. Liam Fox, Secretary of State for International Trade. So they're all there. They've all got some pretty shady backgrounds.
Well, Liam Fox is just one example, Mike, because, of course, he went out in disgrace after one of his male aides had been a little bit too close to his business dealings, claiming to be security cleared and absolutely not. So another major breach of security there. He steps down, goes quiet for a bit, and then just the man to be brought back in. Plus, I would suggest because of his US trading connections.
So do you think Boris stepped down because this was part of the deal?
I think it was always the way it was going to be, Mike. But I'm just pausing there because I know what's coming up, and I am ashamed to be British.
Well, here we are, the Daily Mirror, the PM's bombshell. Dear world, sorry. There he is. But I thought the prize had to go to the National in Scotland. The Deville is in the detail.
Yeah.
The Cruella. So they have absolutely labelled Theresa May as Cruella de Vil. They've got her well and truly photoshopped there. But I hope it's a Photoshop job anyway.
Well, I think what's going on here, Mike, is that we can now have complete cartoon characters as our politicians because, of course, they are not running the country. The country is being run in the background by the increasingly powerful bankers. Well, increasingly powerful, they've always had the power, but we're now seeing it really start to project. So there is no debate in Parliament. MPs are simply puppets that do as they're told by a politicised civil service. And where's the powerhouse coming from? The banking. Theresa May, husband is involved with trillions. So you don't really need the politicians because the control comes in through the back door.
Indeed. So Philip Hammond moved to the Exchequer in charge of the money. He's saying there'll be no emergency budget. He's saying that there's a lot of work now to do. The Prime Minister has made it clear we'll do an autumn statement in the usual way in the autumn, and we'll look carefully over the summer at the situation. So no major emergency budget. We'll be talking a little bit about market reaction in a minute.
But of course, we can't trust a word that Philip Hammond says. We've seen that during the defence time. So you just shuffle over, move over jobs, carry on the same spin to cover up what's really happening.
It is interesting how many people with a defence background are in position. So we've got Michael Fallon staying in the defence role, Philip Hammond, who has had a foreign secretary, foreign office role, and also defence role over into where the money is.
Yeah.
And quite a number of people being with a sort of defence background.
So if there was to be some major defence-related problem crops up, then you've got a good, strong team who are all going to jump on the let's get involved in the war campaign.
A war cabinet, perhaps?
A war cabinet, yeah. Well, we were particularly interested to see who would be Home Secretary, and we've got Amber Rudd here. So we thought it was interesting to have a little look at her background, where, of course, she has absolutely no law and order experience, and yet she's being put in charge of this vast intelligence, security, state spying, militarised police apparatus that Theresa May created. So she's really just a face and a puppet. Let me see if we can call some more up on the screen. Here we go. So this was reported by quite a few of the papers that she had recruited aristocracy, something to do with 4 weddings and a funeral. She's been involved in a film, apparently, very useful. She's a mother. Well, I thought I'd put that in to be fair to her because, of course, there's been a lot of critique about whether you should be a mother or not. She was a mother, but then said, well, I got really bored with that, so I decided I needed to push my career forward properly. Well, that's nice. Of course, she calls herself an investment banker with JP Morgan, but if you consider what she really did, she would probably have been pretty junior, around the tea stirrer's mate, I think the expression is. And she also claims to be a venture capitalist, but if you look at that, that's to do with small businesses. So this is a small toe in the banking water that makes you a banker. And a little bit of her own company here, Executive Search, Lawnstone Limited. So that will be, I've got friends close to the political circles. We can help find you just the right person. Then there's a little bit of journalism claimed on the financial side. Well, you've worked in banks, so you do a bit of that. And then, of course, the real experience for the job is that she worked as a parliamentary private secretary for George Osborne. So this woman has absolutely no credentials for the job, and I would predict that she is now the puppet that will be told what to do by this huge state spying regime. And if you want a little bit more on her, just go on to her Twitter page where, of course, she promotes herself, as they all do, but very big on staying in Europe. This one was fascinating. We do not gain control over our country if we lose control over our continental neighbours. Did we ever have control over our continental neighbours? Did we have control through the EU? I don't think so, so I'm not sure what she's up to there. But tweet after tweet after tweet saying we've got to stay in the European Union, otherwise we're finished. So an ideal woman to be to continue to lock us into the EU security arrangements. And then, of course, we promote a footballer. Who is this? Beckham or somebody, I think he's called. Obviously a man that we need to pay attention to matters politics with Europe. Well, on it goes. Last one here, Better Off In. She's been interviewed. Nice little green jacket because, of course, she's very big on climate change and says that if we don't take control of climate change and control the world's climate, we're all going to die, Mike.
Which is why she's pushing fracking so hard.
That's why she's putting fracking and nuclear energy. And here we are with Horizon. So she's quick to get in on the nuclear energy scene as well. Nice green jacket and a little pink background there for those of you interested in the common purpose colours. Then she's involved with another company, which we'll come on to in a minute. And this is something which is very interesting because she's got these little digs at men. And I'm going to say this is not amusing, and this is nothing to do with sexism. There's something else going on here, but a nice photograph. She's there with a hard hat. There's the silly little men workers posed in the background. And this one was particularly nice. So it's a room full of all ladies apart from one man, and she's labelled it "Spot the Man." That's not me. What is this to do with? Well, no doubt there'll be some ladies out there who think, well, this is good to get more women into politics. But actually, these are women who are going to work to smash apart normal relationships between men and women. This is going to be feminism on reheat. And she had a dig at Mr. Gove because she said, well, he claimed that we were giving 350 million a week to the EU when we weren't. And we'll come on to that a bit later. So let's have a look at this company. And so here she is, First Utility, opening the First Utility Coventry office, and a company which is creating jobs and boosting competition in the energy market. So this is the big boast, of course, creating jobs and energy competition. So what are we dealing with? Well, we're dealing with this. And this is a very interesting organisation which pops up out of nowhere. It's got big sales marketing teams. This is the telephone equivalent of shelf stacking. And it's fascinating to see where this thing has popped up. So if you have a look at some of the things they're talking about, established in 2008, they're interested in smart metering. This is the clue, Mike. By 2013, they've apparently got 250,000 customers. A year later, that's doubled to 500,000. And by 2014, we've got a First Utility Foundation launched as an independent charity. This is the first clue as to what this thing really is. And if we follow it through 2015, it's now launched in Germany under the Shell Energy brand. Right. But it's all independent, you understand. And 2016 May, they're boasting that they've created 1,500 living wage jobs. So this is shelf stacking through big society, basically. And then they're claiming by June 2016 that they have saved 500 million in the energy market. Well, we want to know who they are. So this is just two of their team, but we've got a banker, Sir John Roberts there, and then we've got Fiona Dorr. She's the big social person. So if you have a look into her, this is the sort of common purpose isn't mentioned, but it's common purpose style leadership and big leadership learning organisations at the London end.
So this is what Amber Rudd's promoting.
So Amber Rudd is promoting this as if this is a real company bringing real jobs, but in fact it's not. This is buried in big society where we've got big fossil fuel interests and banking interests are now taking control and promoting smart meters. This is something completely different. And if you want to know where that living wage came from, then you can follow it through the company itself until you come to Citizens UK, and they're boasting that in London a few people got together and started a worldwide movement for people to be paid a living wage, which is about £8 something, unless you're in London and it's £9. So my point is here, we've now got a Home Secretary with absolutely no law and order experience. But if you start to look at what she gets involved with, that's not real either.
Well, something else that's not real is Boris Johnson. And I'm going to apologise for the language. It's on screen at the moment. This is Boris's poem that he wrote about the president of Turkey, Erdogan. There was a young fellow from Ankara who was a terrific, well, you can read it on screen if you wish. But just to demonstrate where this came from, Boris, of course, a long association with the Spectator magazine. This was Boris Johnson winning the Spectator's President Erdogan offensive poetry competition. So you had to write as offensive a poem as possible. about President Erdogan. So this is the man we now have as Foreign Secretary. And here's The Guardian. I think in January last year, the jihadis are porn watching. Well, it's unpleasant. So anyway, a pretty unpleasant comment from Johnson there. Let's see what else he said. Talking about Vladimir Putin, despite looking a bit like Dobby the house elf, Putin is a ruthless and manipulative tyrant. So this is the man that we've got on the diplomatic stage. Well, I hadn't a clue who Dobby the house elf was, and so I just thought we should include him. This is what he's talking about. And finally here, Hillary Clinton. Hillary is like a sadistic nurse in a mental hospital. Yeah. So what can we say?
Well, so what we've got here, Mike, is Britain has been reduced to Little Britain, which is exactly what the Austrian finance minister said a couple of days ago. That's where this country was going to be taken. So we've had all this nonsense in the press and the media. We're now bringing it home in the people themselves that are supposedly running the country. They're not running the country. Boris isn't going to be running the country. He's a committed Zionist, so I think his loyalty is definitely going to be overseas to Israel. These are just puppets to distract people while the real policies are brought in the back door.
But one person we're saying goodbye to is Oliver Letwin, of course, David Cameron's controller. He is, he's gone. And I wonder, is he dumping any documents in bins on his way out the door? I'm not sure.
Well, we're not sure. And if people are curious as to why the powerful Letwin can be allowed to go, that's because, in our opinion, the banking control has been brought in alongside our Prime Minister and other senior ministers. So we don't need a man in the back to form the policy. And the policy is largely formed. And I know you, Mike, are going to say you got it spot on, because it doesn't matter whether the UK is in or out. It's ultimately going to be what happens with these huge trade deals.
We're going to come on to that in a second. So what has Theresa May said about leaving the European Union? She said we're going to need some time to prepare for Article 50 negotiations. I hope that these can be conducted in a constructive and positive spirit. And she was saying that to Angela Merkel. In the meantime, David Davis, of course, he's appointed the minister in charge of getting us out of Europe. He is saying that Article 50 should be triggered by the end of the year. But I just wanted to quote from his article that he's put on the Conservative Home website today, because this was the key point that I was trying to make with regard to the EU referendum PSYOP business from the very beginning. And if you look back at the article that I wrote on this about the David Cameron's Best of Both Worlds document, David Davis here saying, within 2 years before the negotiation with the EU is likely to be complete, and therefore before anything material has changed, we can negotiate a free trade area massively larger than the EU. Trade deals with the US and China alone will give us a trade area almost twice the size of the EU. And of course, we will also be seeking deals with Hong Kong, Canada, Australia, India, Japan, the UAE, Indonesia, and many others. And of course, what form will these trade deals take? They will take very much a TTIP style organization and situation. So what we're looking at, in fact, is, if we look back at the Best of Both Worlds document that David Cameron published at the start of this year, he said that at the heart of Britain's trade policy was TTIP and trade deals like that. This is what we're going to see, and this is why it really doesn't matter whether we're in or out, because the communitarian corporate control that comes in with those deals is something that the EU can only aspire to.
But we can say, Mike, to sit on the fence for as long as possible with discussions about Article 50 and can we do this is going to just assist the whole procedure. One area that the government really doesn't want to talk about is repeal of the 1972 European Communities Act. And we were sent in the government text here. It's a little bit small on screen. We'll expand the key bit for you, just highlighted in red there at the moment. So if we bring that in, And we'll read through it. The UK's membership of the EU is established by the EU treaties, and Article 50 is the process set out in the treaties for member states to follow when leaving. It is the only lawful way to withdraw from the EU. It would be a breach of international and EU law to withdraw unilaterally from the EU, for example, by simply repealing the domestic legislation that gives the EU law effect in the UK. Such a breach would create a hostile environment in which to negotiate either a new relationship with the remaining EU member states or new trade agreements with non-EU countries. So you've got your trade in there, Mike. The House of Lords EU Committee report on the process of withdrawing from the European Union of 4 May has also said that if a member state decides to withdraw from the EU, the process described in Article 50 is the only way of doing so consistent with EU and international law. Now, this is highly ambiguous stuff, but of course, in one sense, what they're actually saying is, well, we don't have any more law in UK because our law is completely trumped by the European Union. Hence, we have to use Article 50. That's one meaning in there. The other thing is they don't want to go near repeal of 1972 because that would actually be the decisive we are coming out of the EU. So I'm going to say this thing is a pack of lies. Article 50 is complete deceit. And what we should be hammering the government on is repeal of the 72 Act. But you can see that the government entrenched in the only law we've got is via the European Union.
And the other thing to remember is look at the timetable for the introduction of qualified majority voting. And if we extend this process out very much longer, we're going to be running slap bang into that to the point where we're more debate, even in a weaker position than we already are with regard to Article 50. Article 50 puts the court in the hands of the European Union, and we're basically begging to be allowed to leave.
That is the word. So here we are begging. Theresa May fluffs her lines over leadership. Well, that was highly appropriate because she isn't going to do it. And then Mr. David Davis is going to be pushing for trade. He's not going to be severing links with the European Union. So we're going to say that the UK column got it spot on, that this was a psyop and there never was any real intention for a break with the European Union. Well, let's come on to Mr. Gove and the 350 million, because this is another con from the government. But essentially, there was a spat over whether we were giving the EU 350 million each week. And this resulted in the UK Statistics Authority making a statement on it. Now, the truth of the matter is that we do give them 350 million per week. But those who said we should stay in the EU said, oh, well, this is not a true figure because we get some of that money back. The fact is we give 350 million a week, and that is a true statement. But we just wanted to put down some of the language that had been bandied about here. And we came from the text there onto the UK Statistics Authority, where they said this: the authority has set out in recent correspondence listed below the figures which describe different sources of UK contributions to the EU, in particular Table 9.9 of the Pink Book, which gives the ONS's best view of the UK's official payments to and receipts from the EU. So we're not dealing in fact, Mike, we're dealing in best views. That's the key bit here. And then it says the ONS has not yet published figures for 2015. However, the Treasury's published a forecast of 8.473 billion for 2015. And this figure has, we understand, been rounded to 8.5 billion by Full Fact and the House of Commons Library. So the moment we get into European financial affairs, it's guesswork, maybe, we're not too sure. But we thought some of our viewers and listeners would be interested that the charity, which has sprung up out of nowhere to keep tabs on whether reports in the media are accurate, Full Fact, is now being used in order to get involved in fudging the figures over how much public money goes to the EU. And I'll just highlight, before we leave that slide, the bit there, the Office of National Statistics, best view. So we don't have fact, we don't have accuracy with public money. We've got a bit of a view as to where it's been spent.
I wasn't aware that we did best views with regard to these types of things. But on the other hand, when I did ask the Treasury about the sale of national assets,
they weren't
able to tell me that. So the amounts that were being sold off. So perhaps best view is the best we can get.
Fraud on the public carried out by our own government is what is going on. And just to emphasise the point, we've got full fact here. So you might like to go and have a look at them. They're a wonderful organisation. They're independent. They've popped up out of nowhere. And of course, these are the people we should trust. And if you have a look at their website, and I'm going to encourage you to do that, they are completely independent. And so they're particularly grateful for money they've received from the Nuffield Foundation, the Joseph Rowntree Charitable Trust, the Esme Fairbairn Foundation, Barrow Cadbury Trust, and on it goes until you're into banking interests. The City of London Corporation, known for their independence, Mike, and Rolls-Royce. So no worries there. If you want truth, just go to that little charity funded by independent corporatists.
Yes, okay. Well, Owen Smith, of course, is the third leadership candidate for the Labour leadership. And he is pretty angry, it seems. He's saying that Labour Leave voters are angry, that they were clearly misled by the Brexit campaign. And he's saying that definitely if he should become leader of the Labour Party, he would be calling for a second referendum or at the very least a general election once the nature of Brexit is finalised, if it ever is finalised. He said that this, a second referendum or a general election, when the terms are clear, the Labour government should be committing to that. I think the Labour government should be committed if they do that. But anyway, he went on, I don't think there are many people out there who voted in good faith for Brexit and who felt they were doing the right thing for their families and their communities, and I respect them for taking the decision, whatever that means. But anyway, this is another fascinating little piece of news. Tom Watson, deputy leader of the Labour Party, absolute enemy of Corbyn, has received a small donation of £200,000 from Max Mosley, who, of course, ex-boss of Formula One, but the man who really started the whole Leveson inquiry
by
campaign.
being get upset that he was photographed in a interesting situation with
Nazi uniform, I believe, with prostitutes. The fact that the press published those photographs, he didn't like very much, so he began the campaign, which resulted in Hacked Off and the Common Purpose agenda to get control of the press. So anyway, he is giving has given 200,000 to Tom Watson. Watson told BuzzFeed, "I'm very grateful to Max for making a generous donation to help me with the cost of staffing my office." I understood he got expenses for that.
Well, it was fascinating, isn't it? I mean, I had hoped that perhaps Max Mosley had given the money to help Tom Watson expose child abuse in Westminster, but apparently this is not the case.
No, well, what he said was £200,000 was donated on the 8th of June to support the work of Tom Watson's office. Tom is a very admirable politician, a fearless campaigner against injustice, and a good man. I have the greatest respect for his commitment to public service and agree with his aims. And delighted to be able to help, is what Max Mosley said.
Well, so, nice, cosy little relationship there.
There you go. And let's see what's next. Ed Vaizey. Well, this is interesting. This is defence Anglo-French cooperation, and we have already got this Anglo-French defence cooperation going on, but this is a new one. This is the UK-France Data Innovation Task Force. And they have published a series of recommendations on how the two countries can work together to use data to stimulate economic growth and improve society, apparently. And as we can see, Ed Vaizey said the UK government will continue to work closely with our European partners to make sure our tech firms and entrepreneurs are ready to capitalise on the opportunities data will provide. So what are they talking about? They're talking about establishing a data twinning program for cities in regional areas with common industries and or demographics, creating common data apprenticeship schemes, and conversion courses to make sure both countries have access to skilled, cutting-edge workforces, connecting tech clusters and tech small and medium-sized enterprises via Data Innovators Passport Scheme to share ideas and extend startup networks in the UK and France, creating a data challenge program to bring organizations from each country together to solve problems, to use data to improve citizens' lives, sharing best practice on data skills, data policy, and how to empower citizens to take control of their personal data. And so basically they're wanting to use this not only to improve people's lives, but of course improve the business prospects for companies that deal in data. And so we're doing this outside the auspices of the European Union. So we're going ahead and creating a second tier of cooperation between European countries.
Well, you've got the police integrated, you've got the paramilitary police coming, you've got the intelligence services swapping information, and now this is all the social data being pulled in to make sure that you know everything about everybody.
Yeah.
So very dangerous stuff.
So how long is it going to be, Brian, before Britain and France is actually the same country?
I don't think that's going to happen, Mike. I think this country, the intent for Britain is that we are reduced to a complete rubbish heap. Nothing will function here. If we can stop violence on the streets, I think we're going to be lucky. The aim is that this country is utterly destroyed. That's what the Austrian finance minister meant when he said, Little Britain, we're to be destroyed, and anything we got of value is going to be sucked into France is the soft cell of Europe. You never hear too much about Britain doing stuff with the Germans because that's a bit emotive. So everybody goes on holiday in France. So it's all going to be pulled across to the French side. And this is just going to be a little sort of prison camp island. That is my prediction, unless a lot of people start to wake up and do the right things very quickly.
Well, the Church of England then has apologised for abuses at Kendall House. Now, Kendall House has been one of the really serious child abuse cases over the years. Church of England saying they're offering a wholehearted apology to hundreds of emotionally disturbed adolescent girls. This is as a result of a review which was held into the children's home, and evidence, according to The Guardian here, showed the home was on the whole toxic and destructive to the girls placed there. Warnings about behaviour at the home, run by the Diocese of Rochester and Canterbury, went unheeded for decades, and the Church's initial response was woeful and inadequate, and that's according to Professor Sue Proctor, who ran this review on behalf of the Bishop of Rochester, the Right Reverend James Langstaff. Now, of course, one of the key survivors of Kendall House was Teresa Cooper. Her book, originally called Pin Down, I believe, renamed to Trust No One, is available in the usual places. This is a pretty harrowing story. Teresa Cooper drugged for days, if not weeks, at a time, and systematically raped.
With the other girls in the home, of course. So men would visit the home, and this was recreation. Yeah. But sorry, if I may, Mike. The key thing is here that, of course, Teresa and other very brave ladies from that home, once they were out, got hold of the medical records, which showed that excessive and dangerous levels of drugs were administered to render them unconscious, and for which they've suffered other effects. I wonder if that level of detail is mentioned in this Church of England report.
But what continues not to be mentioned is any sign of police investigation or prosecution?
No, we're sorry. They've said they're sorry. So this is Chilcot, isn't it? You investigate, somebody's been a little bit naughty, people have had their lives completely destroyed, actually goes into the next generation as well, but there's no real criminal act. It was all a mistake, horrible mistake. And of course, we remind our Christian viewers that Archbishop Welby still doesn't want to make any comment on whether the Church of England will be taking a leading role in tackling satanic ritual abuse. He's simply refusing to answer any letters on the question. And same question's been put to other high-level bishops. And there's also a stunning silence from them as well. So a little bit of a mistake. Few girls treated appallingly, destroyed their lives, but the church has apologised. Let's carry on as normal.
Because we've learned our lessons.
We've learned our lessons. Well, why does this happen? We'll just bring up this diagram, which we had up a week or so ago, where we said if you want to understand what the cover-up of child abuse is about, it is very simple, but child abuse, paedophilia, this is the engine room, this is the fuel by which people can be blackmailed in the political system to carrying out the orders of the criminal elites. Big banking interests, but also, if you like, mafia criminal type interests. Are these people in control of some of Britain's politicians? Without question. And how do we get a major clue? Well, of course, the government's insistence there is nothing to see and nothing to worry about. So let's consider Theresa May. Of course, Theresa May has been aware of major incidents of child abuse, whether reports from Westminster or indeed we better just get her as Prime Minister there. But of course, people like Melanie Shaw speaks out about abuse in Nottingham Children's Home. Factually correct, there's no doubt about that. What has happened is Theresa May, with the Crown Prosecution Service, make sure she's put in prison. And then we've got this extraordinary story of Janice and Brian Doherty. They report a paedophile approach, and the result is they have all 4 children taken away from them. And clearly, Theresa May has been assisting in that process. Well, of course, Theresa's out, and in comes Miss Rudd. So we would like people who are concerned about the issue of abuse to be putting their questions to our new Home Secretary. We'll ignore the fact she's no experience at the moment, but I'm sure as a mother and a former banker, venture capital person, she's going to be really hot on the subject of helping child abuse whistleblowers.
Now, speaking of bankers, of course, just pure coincidence that Mark Carney was discussing interest rates today as Theresa May was announcing her cabinet. But he's leaving interest rates at 0.5% and no change to quantitative easing. As the FT pointed out today, if the Bank of England decides not to cut interest rates on Thursday, it will surprise the markets, which are betting heavily on a 25 basis points cut. I just thought I would put the FTSE 100 in it when you can see the fall on the right-hand side there when the announcement was made, but already within a few minutes, that was starting to reverse itself again. So really nothing to see here.
Okay.
Finally, an interesting little story. We mentioned Philip Dunne yesterday. He's the Minister for Defence Procurement, if he still is. But this is the US and the UK and the US looking to robotics for help with logistics in the last mile. As they're describing it, it says the UK and the US are speeding up the impact the robotic and autonomous systems can have on resupplying their armies by committing to a joint programme announced by UK Defence Minister Philip Dunne and US Under-Secretary of Defence Frank Kendall today. The final stage of transportation of supplies and troops in challenging environments, often dubbed the last mile, can be particularly lengthy and dangerous for those involved. And it's in situations like this that both countries feel robotics can make the process more efficient in terms of cost, time and risk. A series of trials of autonomous systems, including unmanned air and ground vehicles, will begin in October next year, with an autonomous truck convoy demonstration kicking off at the US Army Warfighting Assessment Trials. So Philip Dunne, as you can see there, said defence, science and technology collaboration has been a core part of the special relationship with the US for over 75 years. Robotics and autonomous systems offer opportunities to operate in fundamentally different ways. So what do you make of that?
I've seen some of the films of this. Some of it is just automatic vehicles taking supplies. Some of it is robots. Some of it is robotic mules. It's pretty scary stuff when you look at it. But good to see that they're well into helping the war process as we see things ramped up against Russia? Could it be that they know something's coming?
Well, trade deals, a war cabinet, and this type of collaboration.
In the background.
Yes.
And big orders for Boeing, of course. Okay, well, we'll leave it there. Dangerous and very troubled times for UK. If you're thinking to yourself, what can you do about it? Then truth is the key weapon. Challenge these people on everything they say. The moment there's a lie or spin or propaganda, we need to be picking them up on it and trying everywhere we can to bring them back on the right path. Stick on child abuse, because if you really want to get to the bottom of what is driving these people, money and power, yes, but the blackmail that makes it all work is over the abuse of children. Hence, the stunning silence by senior members of the British government. We'll leave it there. Thank you very much for joining us. And if you like what we do, please consider taking out a subscription. I know at the moment there's over 1,000 people who have a membership with us. That is free at the moment. We'd like to say that if you like us enough to become a member in that way, we need your help with a small monthly subscription so that we can continue to do what we are doing. So we can only do this with your help. And we know there are many people that have enjoyed what the UK column does. We think you value it. If you value it, perhaps you'd be kind enough to make a subscription. That's us today. We will be back tomorrow with David Scott from Northern Exposure, and particularly an update on Brian and Janice Doherty. Thanks very much for joining us. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.